We did not know them, our ancestors. We did not know where to look. But they were there, hiding in full view. We heard them in the non-stop voice of storytelling. We saw them ghostly in the glass plate shadows, waiting to emerge into light of day. We called for them, and they sent us clues and answers in the most unexpected ways. We trod their pathways and saw them in the flowing river, wafting slowly, slowly. I see them still in the corner of my imagination as I pass along the river's edge. We found them in the memories of the in-between generation, confirming, linking us to them. And then they showed themselves complete and beautiful as the glass plates lit up and they became reality. We found them, they found us, and we found ourselves. Míle maith.
She never practiced that at all. Maire, that's absolutely amazing. And I think it's a great introduction and a great compliment. When we first met Maire, we knew the depth of knowledge that she had and the passion that she had for the family. And we want to say thank you on behalf of the whole world to say thank you for minding these places and looking after them. Because today is day one and there's many more projects that will come out of these. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Frances Rocks. Frances is an author, she's a teacher, she's a historian, and she's a member of Navan District Historical Society, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about the fashion of the Hanley family on the day. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I would like to invite you for the next 20 minutes to a world of soft scales and elegance while we explore the fashion plates from the Hanley collection. This family embodies Coco Chanel's famous quote, "Fashion changes, but style endures." These photos cover the end of the Victorian period to the beginning of the Edwardian era, 1895 to 1910, an era of respectability, beauty, and accomplishment. Let me introduce you to our very own Helena Bonham Carter. We know her from the famous film A Room with a View. This was an era where women did not always have a voice, so they used style to say who they are without having to speak. In this interior shot, the young girl wears a high-necked white dress, emphasizing purity and innocence. The long, undressed hair suggests the young girl on the cusp of becoming a woman. This is echoed in the fresh, half-open rose tucked into her waistband. The large, stylish leg muffin sleeves are used, according to the costume designer in the popular Regency series, Bridgerton, to suggest a caged bird, perhaps a hint at women's inferior role in society at that time. Mark Twain wrote, "A photograph is a most important document, and there is nothing more damning to go down to posterity than a silly, foolish smile caught and fixed forever." So instead of saying cheese, sitters were encouraged to say prunes to create the effect of a small, perfect mouth. And here we see such in Agnes Hanley, who was the daughter of John Philip Hanley, better known as the King Hanley, and his wife Teresa Capel. Agnes had married John Sweetman on the 11th of September 1895, and this is the Lady of the Manor. A significant feature of the photo, as you can see here in the close-up, is the beautiful micro-mosaic brooch, possibly given to Agnes by her parents who had honeymooned in Italy, because these brooches were only available in Italy. And here we can see a dove carrying a branch, a symbol from the biblical story of Noah's Ark. The dove returned to the ark with the evidence, the branch, that the floods were subsiding. and this is a universal symbol for peace, and often in Irish monuments we can see the word Suvnus, peace, written underneath. The design, as we can see, is a trefoil which is 3 leaves, where the upper leaf has 11 precious stones. Agnes's imposing hat and posture silently declares, I am Lady of the Manor. True elegance is the presence you bring to your clothes. As we know this autumn, feathers are very fashionable again. As one contemporary designer commented recently, here I am, fabulous in feathers, and isn't she? Several birds in the early 19th century were on the point of extinction due to the fashion for feathers in women's hats. Some women even went as far as using a full stuffed bird in the hat. Taxidermy, the stuffing of animals, would not have appalled these women because they were used to having fowl prepared for the kitchen. But Alice understood simplicity is the keynote of true elegance and uses the feathers to draw the eye upwards. She reminds me of Philip Tracy, the famous Irish milliner who created a wonderful feathered headdress for Camilla to flatter that lady on her marriage to the Prince, now King Charles. In our next close-up, we see Agnes dressed formally in a beautifully tailored woolen coat. Her graceful posture elevates the refined tailoring of the stylish leg of muffin sleeves, which emphasise her small waist, a desired feature of beauty at this time. In a playful gesture, Agnes sports 2 fresh narcissi, neatly tucked into the buttonhole of her lapel. We can even see the stalks. The Hanley family were enthusiastic market gardeners and skilled horticulturalists. This finishing touch of the 2 narcissi elevates her polished, effortless charm. And now we go into a quiet, contemplative interior shot, and we see a lady sitting by a window reading a newspaper. Props were carefully arranged by the photographer to convey something about the sitter. This woman is literate and unmarried. In the parlance of the time, a blue stocking, a term for an educated, intellectual woman, often not appreciated by some men at this time. On close examination, we see the newspaper opened at an advertisement for drainage sanitary plumbing by the Carter brothers. In this period, 1895 to 1910, many big houses did not have indoor plumbing. Commodes were used, a chamber pot inside a wooden chair structure. But this photograph suggests a modern, enlightened family embracing the latest innovations. As we can see, her costume is beautifully embellished with jet beading, and this was very fashionable in the Victorian era due to Queen Victoria's lengthy mourning of her beloved Prince Albert. The lady's pendant necklace is reminiscent of a chatelaine, and this was a decorative appendage which would have keys, scissors, etc., and it points to this lady as being the woman of the household who would direct servants, delivery men, and open and lock access to the valuables of the house. And now we meet our 3 ladies about to play tennis. The young girl, as you can see, is in the white dress, which is short, with the boots visible and her hair down. The tennis rackets indicate that while these may be ladies of leisure, they were active, engaging in sport. In 1891, the Ladies' Home Journal wrote, "We ought to welcome the healthy, hearty girl who can beat her brother in managing a tennis ball." Lawn tennis had just recently been invented in 1860 by a British Army officer. And remember, the ladies wore their ordinary clothes to play lawn tennis: long sleeves, hats, and heeled boots. Notice the wide Victorian waistbelt with metal clasp, in this case a butterfly, to circle the waist in the fashionable 16 to 18-inch waist. Nowadays, the average waist for a woman, which is very good, is 26 to 28 inches, a full 10 inches more. Belts were made from cotton, linen and silk, and often boned. Imagine playing tennis, not only in heeled boots, but also cinched in at the waist. Our next close-up shows the torque bracelets of the young girl. Throughout these photographs, the sitters prominently display their jewellery. The young girl has 2 torque bracelets, which was a symbol of the wearer's high status in society, and we know that the torque design comes from the Bronze Age, and it symbolises strength, power and nobility. Our next close-up shows the lady wearing a tie. Now, a tie is a symbol of power and respect, and at this time women were moving from an inactive life to a more active life, and so they wore tailored clothing for bicycling and hiking and wore ties. And again, notice the incredible waist. Our next close-up shows the trefoil embroidery on the lady's blouse, and this is 3 leaves, which was similar to the shamrock used by St. Patrick to illustrate the teaching of God as 3 in 1, Father, Son and Holy Ghost. Our next exterior shot shows a lady in her walking outfit. This was a very popular pastime in Victorian times. It was called the daily constitutional, and it was often taken after a meal to speed up the digestion process. And this lady has the S-bend shape, which was the desired silhouette of the Victorian early Edwardian era. And this was achieved by a boned corset, usually made with strips of whalebone or metal bands to achieve the hourglass figure. And remember, even our tennis ladies, underneath those voluminous skirts, long sleeves and high-heeled boots, plus the cinched-in waist, were also wearing corsets. How did they do it? They were surprisingly comfortable, these corsets, contrary to popular belief. They bent easily, and to achieve the round bottom, unlike Kim Kardashian, what you did was you added a padded piece, otherwise known as a bustle, and this was tied over the corset at the lady's bottom and gave a very pert figure, as you can see. Here we have, in our next close-up, a sitter who is arranged to highlight the best features. The lady's fine kid gloves were both fashionable and luxurious, and they highlighted her small hands, something which was prized among upper-class women, as it was in stark contrast to the large hands of women who had to work manually, and that led, of course, to thick, coarse hands. Upper-class women often wore gloves which were too small in order to shrink their hands. Our next close-up shows the lady with a mink tie at her neck and a straw boater with a velvet ribbon. Again, she is photographed on smiling, because at this time a photograph took 15 minutes to expose, so a smile would be difficult to hold. And don't forget, they were told to save prunes. Our next photo shows the ladies going to a ball. Our 4 ladies are dressed in the height of fashion as they pose in the garden just before they go off. They carry fans, which was an instrument of communication between young couples when freedom of speech was restricted by strict chaperones and disapproving parents. At this time, 1892, Oscar Wilde had just written his play, Lady Windermere's Fan. The fan was the modern emoji, conveying a message quickly. A fan open in the left hand signalled, "Come and talk to me." A fan open in the right hand signalled, "Follow me." And now we have a close-up of the unbelievable 18-inch waist. Notice how carefully composed these sitters are. The lady with the best waist is highlighted by a tightly closed fan, revealing her slenderness, and emphasised by a filet insert, contrasting sharply with the voluminous leg of mutton sleeves. There were no rings and no necklace, the full emphasis on the slenderness of the waist. Our next close-up shows a printed parasol, and this hints at the exotic splendours which had been seen in Prince Albert's Great Exhibition, which had happened in 1851 in England. Marvellous items from the colonies such as India and China had been displayed, and here we catch a glimpse of an eye of a tiger painted on the parasol. Our next close-up shows the ladies sitting on a tiger rug, and it is actually noted on the lid of the box which contains the glass plates, tiger rug. Had one of the family been on a safari or visited exotic climes? Well, we will meet somebody later on who has travelled to these exotic places. Our next close-up shows the button gloves, which were the absolute height of fashion at this time. They were often made of white kid, and they were used in the evening as they were fastened with 2 or 4 buttons and called opera gloves. In her hand, she is holding a programme du bal, which was brought in 19th century Vienna at the time and was lasted up until World War I. And this was a pencil and a dance card for the evening. And on the card would be the list of dances that were to be played: the waltz, the polka, the quadrille, and the name of the composer. But the most important thing of all was the space. And the space was who was going to dance with you, the partner. Is she hopeful of many dances from would-be suitors? And of course the dance card would be carefully kept as a souvenir of the evening. And now we meet a very different character, and this is Gran Russell, quietly reading in the garden, her shawl casually thrown over the plant stand. She sports a magnificent cameo brooch, and on the wooden box in which this glass plate was stored, it read 4 graces. The close-up here of the cameo brooch shows the 4 graces, who were the children of Zeus, the god of mythological Greek fame. And these 4 graces were beauty, grace and charm. And on the right hand side of the slide you'll see them appearing, as they always did, as a group of 3.